Commission meeting. Jamie, do you want to do roll call?
Chair Steenblock.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Ramseth.
Here.
Commissioner Steenblock.
Here.
Commissioner Moorhead. Commissioner Geyer.
Here.
Commissioner Gary.
Present.
All right. Moving on to number 3, we're looking for an approval for the agenda for this evening.
I make a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of 6A.
Okay,
I'll second that.
so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I don't see anybody here for open forum. Do we have any written comments for open forum, Jamie?
We do not have any for the open forum tonight.
All right, so then we'll move on to 5A, which is the park event permit application.
All right, Chair and members of the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, the first agenda item is review and consideration of 2 park event permit applications we've received for Lakeside Memorial Park. The first application that we've received is for June 25th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. for a private graduation party. This group primarily plans on using the gazebo. However, they will use some of the surrounding park area. They'd like to set up a few additional 10 by 10 canopy tents. They have been informed that that would be okay with weights, no stakes in the ground, so they are familiar with that requirement. They do have somebody that will be playing DJ music in the gazebo. Therefore, that also triggers an outdoor entertainment permit with the City of Forest Lake, so they have submitted that appropriate application as well. And with your approval, that will move forward to City Council approval. The second park event permit application we currently have received for the summer is for the Forest Lake Lake Association, their membership barbecue on Saturday, July 23rd. This is estimated from around noon until 5 p.m. Again, this group is going to use the gazebo, and they're actually looking to set up a larger tent. So they will and have submitted the outdoor entertainment permit with a tent to the City of Forest Lake, again, which is required for that use. They do expect to have about 300 to 400 people, so this is a larger event. Food will be catered in and such. So there'll be quite a few people during this time because they are going to have that live entertainment as well. So again, once, pending Parks, Trails, Lakes Commission approval, this will go for City Council approval as well. So with that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we are looking for a motion to approve the park event permit application for the graduation party on June 25th and the park event permit application for the Forest Lake Lake Association gathering on July 23rd of 2022. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions?
I move that we approve the 2 applications for use of the park as submitted.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, so then we are on to 5B, which is the facility use agreement for the Forest Lake Athletic Association.
All right, thank you, Chair and members of the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission. The second item on our agenda tonight for consideration of approval is an agreement between the City of Forest Lake and the Forest Lake Area Athletic Association for our facility use agreement and use of our athletic facilities. So last year, as you may recall, we entered into a 1-year agreement with the Forest Lake Area Athletic Association for essentially the same form of contract with priority scheduling of our fields, and we've outlined the different responsibilities from the city and the athletic association. The city did meet with the athletic association, and both parties did agree that last year went really well. There were no issues or concerns, and both parties did want to enter into another similar agreement for this year. So that is what you see tonight. The only difference in our conversation is the athletic association was previously using Cool and Camp fields, periodically shilling Park for some of the ball fields. So just as a benefit to them, we've included those fields as priority scheduling as well. So it just gives them the opportunity to really all of our athletic facilities, not just at Fenway Park, to have that first priority to schedule for their member games and practices if they have that need. So that's really only the contractual difference in here, as we've broadened that. And once their schedules are submitted to the city, then all of those athletic facilities are available to the general public or other user groups to then schedule. So with that, looking to approve the facility use agreement between the City of Forest Lake and the Forest Lake Area Athletic Association for 2022. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I have a question. I'm a little concerned about including all the other parks, because where does community ed go? Where do all the t-ball games and the little softball games go?
Sure. So the Forest Lake Athletic Association used to run the T-ball and modified pitch, and they don't anymore. So that's run through the district. That when they were doing that, they used Belts Park, but the district, I think they have many of their own fields and facilities that they're running T-ball there. So they don't.
I see t-ball constantly in the spring at Belts. I mean, it's busy.
Yep.
I mean, would you agree?
Yep.
Yeah,
Not
so
just
then
t-ball,
that's.
But the underhand pitch, those first couple of years.
Sure, and then I guess that's coming on the first come, first serve basis, because FLA's they didn't schedule Schilling or Belts Park last year, so that would be just probably the first come, first serve use of that. Nothing scheduled directly through the city.
I had the same concern with Belts, and actually this evening when we drove by,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
the two fields were full tonight with people, I'm assuming, walking on. So I was wondering if it would be possible to, if we're going to do this, my concern is that there isn't gonna be a place for people, so if we agreed to do this, would there be the ability to maybe get like a mid-season update to see whether or not we're having issues or people that aren't able to use it? And if so, can we adjust this? Because I have this same, there's no place for people to go for pickup.
And not just pickup, but again, community ed, the younger kids, the ones that are not in FLA, are
Right.
still out there using these fields.
Yeah, and so part of this year too, with the field scheduling, we're gonna be working hand in hand with the district on scheduling of our facilities and their facilities as well. So, there's a lot of collaboration there, that if they have the need and Belts is not scheduled by an athletic association group, which really I don't know that they're gonna have, that their, teams are gonna have that need there. Primarily, they're still gonna be using Fenway Park and Cooling Camp. Those are their two primary group parks that they use. So baseball schedules a lot out at Cooling Camp. Nobody scheduled at Schilling last year from the athletic association. So I think, there's certainly some good collaboration there, and if FLA is not scheduling Belts Park, then that would be open to this district and any other user groups as well. So I don't see them really scheduling Belts frequently, if much at all, based on their user groups that they have. And, we certainly can monitor that if we needed to assess, okay, how many times do they schedule at Belts Park? And if it's one time, then maybe that's not a significant amount. But
I'm curious why they asked for both of those then. if
I
they're
don't-
not thinking they need them.
no, it wasn't. The intent was to look at we're starting to transition away from just looking at Fenway Fields all the time and more of our athletic facilities on a broad level. So it wasn't an intent, and they didn't ask for that. It was just, it's part of our city parks that have athletic facilities. So that's how that is incorporated there. It wasn't an ask on their behalf. It was brought up to say, you guys schedule at Cooling Camp. Let's just look at our athletic facilities as a whole and not just Fenway Fields. So.
Well, I think there's probably a benefit, because if they do have those other parks, then they can see, like I know that like T-ball, a lot of T-ball, they use the school fields, so like behind Forest Lake Elementary and Forest View, there's like four fields there. Columbus has some, Linwood's got one, things like that. But I think that, with FLA taking care of, Schilling and Belts, then that would also allow them to not have a conflict, but at the same time would allow, the softball or t-ball or whatever to go in and then schedule those fields also. I think, to Terry's point, as far as playing pickup, again, there's plenty of fields, by the schools, that, again, oftentimes aren't being used. So I think, we're not shorting anybody from the pickup game.
I feel like we've talked about Fenway very specifically as, athletic facility, where we've talked about the other parks as neighborhood parks. And so I struggle a little bit that we're giving them priority over 4 of our facilities. And maybe it won't be an issue, but I'm just gonna go on record to say, I hope that our community ed teams have convenient places to play.
No, I understand, and I think, again, looking at broadening this to all of our athletic fields and facilities and assessing them, Cooling Camp has been used for several years, primarily by the Baseball Association. They've invested thousands of dollars to the city in a conjunction with, city contribution and grant opportunities to really improve and expand the fields out at Cooling Camp. So now 2 of them are complete for, I don't know the exact ages, but 10 and under, or 8 and under, or give or take, so they can have games out there because the demand, Fenway Field 5 is a baseball field, but that didn't meet the demand they have for their program. So they've been improving Cooling Camp Park. There's definitely one field out there that's very much community practice, even for them, but they have made investments out there to really improve that as an athletic facility for games, for baseball. And Schilling Park, we have 2 fields there. Those are definitely just a practice field. They're not complete by any means, but some of these organizations, whether it's pick up with a community member or family, or some of these teams, they do just need practice fields too. I think they're running out of Forest Lake still to find enough practice fields. So last year when I said, I don't think anyone really used Schilling Park, they said, we got to make sure we're keeping that in mind as we're looking at our facilities. So it's in an effort to streamline and, make sure everyone knows what's out there, because we have the fields. We want people to be using them and maximize that use, whether it's community ed, the general community, or our athletic association, so we can keep people in Forest Lake. So that's the effort behind that, and having these scheduled. And if they turn in their schedules and they don't have anything for Cooling Camp or Schilling, that is then open up immediately to the public to schedule first come, first serve. So it's just kind of giving them that first priority of if they have a need. I understand the concern. I know we do need to make sure we have fields for the community and with community education, but I do feel confident that working in collaboration that they have their needs met or will work together on anytime there's a gap, it's available for use. So
You're gonna reach out then to community ed to let them know they need to schedule?
yes,
as
we
soon as
are.
possible?
We're working with the district right now on collaborative scheduling of our facilities, and so that's going to be coming forward soon. It's just been a process because it's new and getting agreements in place, but that is a favorable direction for the city and the athletic association, so that there's kind of a one-stop shop for scheduling fields. So
FLA is not a one-stop shop. FLA has a niche, right?
right.
And then there's other needs in the community. So I just want to make sure that we're not, and nothing against FLA at all, but they don't get it all, I guess is all I'm saying.
Sure.
So that's,
Nope, I understand. Maybe I communicated it wrong, but FLA not being the one-stop shop, but having a simplified and efficient scheduling process between the city facilities and school facilities. So sometimes they're going to use a Schumacher Field with the school district. Sometimes they're going to use Fenway Field. So if there's a way that can all be visible in one stop to schedule that's our goal, and we're working through some of that right now. So I think that there's a really good collaboration that, the reality is FLA in our community is a large percentage of the athletic organized sports. I'm not saying 100%, but they do have a large percentage of the
for the upper eighties.
Right, and then the district runs the community ed programs, and again, very strong communication with them on their needs and sharing of facilities.
I guess the one thing I was thinking about with Belts is we wanted to keep that as a field, just for residents to come in and that's how we, that's how we built it on the new plan when Belts Park gets done. I guess I see that as, I'd like to keep that as a small, kids can go out and just throw a ball around or something like that.
Let me ask you this, Jamie. How often did community ed schedule fields last summer?
We didn't have a formal schedule, it was just first come, first serve.
Yeah, with kids in both FLA and in community ed, it does seem, I've went through the T-ball program the last 3-4 years here, and it does seem that most of the field use is at the school districts. There's plenty of fields there. So I'm not really that concerned about the overlap. They do show in the contract here that they've got to give us 25 days notice to have that priority, so we should know right now what 25 days from now looks like. And then at that, as long as community ed knows they can start scheduling, I think we should be fine.
I think that's a key for me then, is making sure that community ed understands the rules have changed and they need to be requesting those fields now.
Yes, I think that's understood, and our goal is to have everything that is programmed, a programmed recreational program or game practice, to have that on a calendar. That is something we have not really had. 2 years ago, we didn't have any of that because we don't have the resources to do so. And last year, we started collecting some of the information from FLA to know, how many members are participating, how many games, and how many practices, so we can really understand the need and the demand in the community, because we were learning that, we didn't have enough practice fields or game fields here, and sometimes they're leaving the community to go have a game in a different, neighboring area. So we're really trying to understand the supply and demand, essentially. So as we're developing and updating our master plan, we have a needs assessment completed for our athletic facilities. Do we need, that will drive the growth for the future.
So am I hearing you right that the community ed knows right now that they will need to reserve these fields differently than they have in the past?
Yes, they know that our fields are first come, first serve, and if you want them guaranteed, they have to be scheduled, just like how all of our picnic shelters operate and any of our other athletic facilities. If they don't want to schedule them on and go through the scheduling process, they're at risk of first come, first serve, which at Belts Park has probably been pretty safe because no one else is scheduling that. But like all of our facilities, it's first come, first serve, unless it's paid reservation. And then if someone showed up with a permit that they paid for for Belts Park for a game, then they would have the right to that field at that time. So that would be the case for any user group. It's first come, first serve, unless you have a paid reservation.
So if we have, the association has 20 days prior to the beginning of the recreation program to do the scheduling. Obviously, I would assume one of these programs, at least, if not a couple of these programs, have already started. So could we get an update 20 days from the date that this contract is signed?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
That shows the usage and shows where it's gonna be used and by who and what's available.
Yes, I can get that.
I guess my last question is, if FLA didn't ask for these to be put in the contract as they get priority, why did we put them in the contract as priority?
We put it in there, recommended it as part of the contract because they are the primary user group at Cool and Camp Park as it is, and they're already scheduling I think they're pretty much our only user group out at Cool and Camp, so it was a way to incorporate that into this contract as well. And they've also scheduled at Schilling and Park in the past. And I know Fast Pitch last year really was having some challenges with field access. And so I said Schilling Park there's 2 fields there for practice. So it was in an effort to continue that relationship with FLA as our primary user group of our athletic facilities. And that's why Belts was included, because those are our 4 parks that have athletic fields there. So we're really trying to broaden things beyond just, they all have athletic facilities, so if they had a field that they needed, they would have that priority. So that's how it got included.
So then would we then also be responsible for keeping, let's say, Belts or Schilling up to par with the other athletic fields that we talk about in here?
No, this is the act of just scheduling it. So like at Lakeside Memorial Park, when we talk about the gazebo and the picnic shelters, people reserve those so they can use them for graduation parties, family gatherings, but they're provided as is. We don't do anything different for those. So this is scheduling the field so they know they have guaranteed field time for a practice or a game. But
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
No,
I'm kinda
no, that's
digging in
good.
here. So then if you look under like city responsibilities, it talks about our responsibilities for keeping those athletic facilities, which we have to find up front as those, 4 areas. So that to me would read then we need to keep these up to playing level, like we do Fenway. And I don't know if we're prepared for that.
I agree with you. I would like to keep Belts as just a park for residents to come. And like I say, I think, I like Fenway, I like Schilling, I like Cool and Camp. I just think that it's the residents also that, the residents count. And like I say, I'm not saying anything bad about FLA. We love FLA, and but I'd like to have that park stay a small park with 1 field or something like that.
Well, I think, if you look again back, and maybe this will change, but typically, Belts maybe gets drug once a week. Maybe after rain, they'll drag it a second time, but typically, it's drug about once a week, but it's never chalked. And, I see they're doing things about fertilizing and whatever else, and if that's what the city wants to do, that's fine. But I don't know that with Belts and Schilling, that really has to go beyond, dragging it once a week. You don't need to chalk it, and then anybody's out there to play. Whereas with Fenway and Cool and Camp, because you've got travel games out there, those fields are drugged on game day, and they're chalked. So I guess if the care that's presently being done at Belts, continues, I think I'm fine with that. But yeah, I don't see any sense in dragging the field every day and chalking it and whatever else.
So to that's a good point to bring up. The city does not plan on changing our maintenance plan for any of our 4 parks listed here. So the only thing I could maybe see is indicating as needed per particular park standard. So we aren't going to change Cool and Camp into, we're not going to irrigate it. We're not putting an irrigation system in. We may not need to aerate at all the parks. So that would be a public works, maintenance function of per city standards. So if Belts Park has just been getting mowing and some grass trimming, maybe some weed control, then that's going to maintain the same. It's not changing the level of maintenance, care, or expectation for the use of the fields. It's essentially just improving the scheduling priority. It just gives them the opportunity to book
That needs
those
to be
fields.
clarified in here, because if you look at it as written, we would be responsible for all those things if FLA needed them done.
Yeah, I can make a note to our attorney to update that to just indicate, because right now we are doing essentially all the items is except city, number 4A, we maybe just need to clarify as determined by the city per park or something of that nature, because each individual park has a different maintenance plan.
Yeah, to that point, you may wanna clarify in guess that would cover it too, fertilization.
Say, Jamie, one other thing I would probably clarify, particularly with people that are either is community ball or whatever, would be once the pitching rubbers and bases are set, to leave them alone. For the 15 years that I umpired, I would bet at least once or twice a year, there'd be somebody that had dug up the pitching rubber because they had measured from the front of the plate rather than the back of the plate. And didn't have the problem with the travel ball, but with the community ball. Because they'd get out there, and as soon as I'd see somebody out there with the tape measure, here we go. And like I said, I would guess at least once, if not twice a year, I would come and like over by South, and again, that field's gone now, but Southwest or some field, and some dad had gotten a shovel out and they moved the rubbers.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
oh yeah. So just emphasize to the people that once the pitching rubbers and home plates are set, just leave them alone.
Doug, were you gonna say?
Well, after listening to the concerns and the fact that you're saying that maybe the contract could be modified to address some of those issues, why not just remove Bell's Park from the list of parks? It doesn't fit with the others. It's a community, city park, neighborhood park more than the others. So I would suggest we consider doing that, just removing it.
I've heard there's 3 of you that are feeling that way. Are one of you interested in making a motion, or?
I would make a motion to accept, with the removal of belts and the clarification under city responsibilities, that in those places other than Fenway and Cooling Camp, the requirements may be different for the shape of the fields. I don't know how you word that.
I'd second that.
That makes sense.
And
Okay, so
would it be wise to push, I haven't been to Schilling Field for decades, so I can't even tell you. I know how to get there, but I haven't been to it. Would that be a good field to also to eliminate too, just because it's kind of a neighborhood practice field? Or is it pretty insistent by FLA to keep that as a practice field and having them schedule it?
I think that one would be more appropriate to keep if there's not any major concerns amongst the Parks Commissioners. They were excited to recognize that they could have some scheduled practices there, and I know that they were leaving the community, so I think keeping that, if there's not any issues or concerns, that would be appropriate for practice use.
I would support then removing belts from this.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion on that? Hearing no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So this year then, we'll be able to gather more data on real usage before next year?
Yes, and
Okay.
that's part of how it's just, we just started last year collecting some data. And really the intent, and I've communicated this to the organizations as well, is it really just helps us to have a little bit of a pulse on supply and demand and what's needed as we're really looking at improving and expanding our master plan and really building out a 10-year parks plan. We really need to know what that need is. Is it for T-ball? Is it for baseball, softball? Do you need practice games? So multi-use fields, just really trying to start to understand, not only between the athletic associations and people that are scheduling our fields, even then with the district of, what facilities do they have? Do they have needs for our facilities? So it's a process, but yes, that is our intent, is really kind of start understanding more of what we need and who's using it. So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Good conversation. All right, so we are moving on to 5C, which is the Parkland dedication requirements.
All right, so the next item here, as Chair Steenblock mentioned, is our Parkland Dedication Requirements Ordinance. So I'm just gonna kind of walk through some of this conversation tonight and go through kind of where we've been and where we are here today. As you all know, we've reviewed our Parkland Dedication Requirements Ordinance several times, which I did include here in the agenda packet. And as you know, this ordinance is pretty outdated. It's pretty wordy and kind of, we've had some confusion on what should or should not be charged and when. So as a commission, we said we really recommend getting that reviewed and clarified. So city staff has had some conversations, and we have met with our city attorney. And upon their review, they agreed and have recommended to repeal and replace the current ordinance. So essentially, we're gonna eliminate this ordinance here, and they have written a new ordinance to reflect the new language for the Parkland dedication requirements, which I also provided so you can compare. So I don't want to go too much into the old Parkland dedication requirements, because essentially it's recommended that that will go away and be completely replaced with new language. So I'm just going to kind of talk through some of the high-level changes. I do want to note that this is what our attorney is recommending. So this will be our basis moving forward, but we do need to have it come through the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission. It will go to Planning Commission and then to City Council for adoption. So this is kind of that first stop along the way. So feel free to ask any questions. I'll do my best to answer specific questions, but I don't want to get too specific because I'll explain further here in a moment. So as you look at the new proposed ordinance, again, it's an ordinance that will repeal and replace the current Parkland dedication requirements, and then it's outlined here of what the new language will be. So one key thing to note is it's obviously, you can see it's simplified quite a bit. It's a shorter, more concise ordinance, which I think will be really a lot easier for us to follow. But one of the key differences is that with some changes that are at the state level, it is impacting how municipalities can charge or determine what they can collect to meet that Parkland dedication requirement. We still have the option to accept cash, the option to accept land, or the combination of cash and land. But the calculation is going to be assessed on a case-by-case situation with a development that comes forward. So previously, we had $2,500 per unit for residential. Moving forward, there's a recommended amount that we're gonna have in our fee schedule, and I believe the city, it will be recommended $3,000 per unit. However, each individual development that comes forward, city staff with Parks Commission and our attorney will have to determine that and justification of that requirement to be met. So larger developments, we could have a better justification for a larger impact on parks, trails, and open space based on the density of that project. Smaller projects, we might not have as great of a justification if there's not a big park impact. So again, that's driven kind of from some changes at the state level. So this code is written in a way that it's clear and concise and will help guide us. And we will take each individual one on a case-by-case scenario. I just do want to note that as this change goes into place and we adopt the new ordinance, a key thing that we'll be working on is some updates to our master plan. We did receive grant funding for that, and we'll be making some updates. It'll be really important that we do a really thorough assessment of our park system to see how many acres of parkland we have, what's recommended, put some information in there that we can kind of, have a good assessment of our park system so that we can look at that when we're assessing impacts on parks and trails. So that's the biggest change without going into, very specific of the code, because again, our attorney wrote this and is recommending this as our city code, but I know this has been something that we've talked about quite a bit on what should we charge or shouldn't for commercial and and things of that nature. So that has all been addressed. And again, as we have specific projects that come forward, we'll be able to work with city staff and our attorney to make sure that we're providing the best parkland dedication requirement for the city and to support our parks and trails and open spaces. So with that, I will be happy to do my best to answer any questions. If I don't have specific answers today, I'm happy to circle back with our attorney, but we do want support from the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission with the concept of repealing and replacing our ordinance so that we have this new ordinance moving forward.
Jamie, if we're going to have a variable amount for, depending upon factors regarding the size of the development, and you said up to $3,000, but the language here says 2,000, is that going to be changed to indicate that it could be from 2 to 3,000, 2,500 to 3,000?
Correct. So in the old code, I think you're referring to the 2,000 that was listed there in the old code, is that?
Yeah, that's the old one.
Yeah, that was the old code.
Am I looking at the old code?
Which is okay. That's the first one, the, with the,
There's no dollar amount listed on the one.
so the new,
I had this, a similar question in that, I guess my question is why would you even list it in the fee structure as 2,500 or 2,000, whatever you end up listing it as, if the council is going to, on an individualized basis pursuant to blah, 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 going to figure that out. And when you look at Minnesota statute 462-358, the subsection that's referenced here, it does say that it's based on the average fair market value of the unplatted land. And then it also says that that can be determined by the municipality on tax valuation or other relevant data. So why doesn't the fee structure say that it'll be based on, which is what's in statute, fair market value and then other relevant data?
And
It's-
say, I would piggyback on that comment, and, you know, I think there should be, if you're going to go along with the assessed value and all of that, I think we should, for budgeting purposes, have a minimum fee of, you know, $2,500 or 3,000, whatever it is, and then use this as we go forward. Then you can use, you know, market data or whatever. But, you know, if you have rising and falling costs, or I should say valuations, you know, you still have costs usually going up, so you really can't afford to have, well, we had a bad year, so now the value's only $1,500. I think you have to have that minimum fee, whatever it is, and then keep your calculations in there for appreciation or growth, inflation, whatever it would be.
I don't think you can have the minimum fee if you look at the statute. I'm not an attorney, but the statute, I don't think you can set a baseline minimum because the statute's very clear in that it's based on the average fair market value. And then it goes on to say that fair market value means the value of the land as determined by the municipality annually based on tax valuation or other relevant data, so.
And the fallacy of that is that those values are based on sales from a year ago.
Correct.
You know, it's like now, what we're going through.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't, a comp done in January didn't count. It had to be a comp from September of 2021 back to October of 2020. Well, now you're not keeping up with the market because your market has changed. You're stuck with that old number.
yeah, so to answer the question about, you know, we previously had the amount listed in the ordinance, which was not a great idea because fees can change, then we have to always change and adopt a new ordinance. So what will happen is we can list in our fee schedule, and I believe it may be required to list a tentative fee or an estimated fee. I believe that's required, and that'll be listed in our city's fee schedule. So it won't be part of this actual ordinance. We won't list that price in here. But every year when we adopt our fee schedule, we can, make any necessary or appropriate changes. So my understanding is it's gonna be listed as an estimated fee of $3,000 per unit. However, that's just estimated and that's just a guideline. So again, there are gonna be a lot of individual changes as we move forward. The code is, here to help clear things up, but I think I know every individual case will come forward for analysis and consideration with city staff, and, our attorneys will be involved in that process as well. And this isn't just a Forest Lake thing. This is, at the state level, so other municipalities are kind of experiencing this change as well, and I'm sure there'll be some questions along the way. And so, again, I'm also not an attorney, but can do my best to, pass any comments on to them to consider before this does get to final adoption by city council. But for the most part, it's gonna be the repeal and replace of the code.
But so according to the state statute, we can't have a minimum?
I'm not an attorney,
Yeah, just from your.
but based on what I see here, they're very clear as to how the municipality may choose to accept whatever they accept. And it doesn't state there that there can be a set amount, but it does say, and this is, I think, one of the pieces that we need to take back to the attorneys. It says the fair market value, but then it also says, or other relevant data. I think as the city determines what that other relevant data is, we should be a part of that. We should have an opportunity to hear what that other relevant data is. And in the spirit of transparency in government, that other data that's considered, the city should make that transparent to anybody in the city or who wants to do business in the city. So I think that needs to be, that other relevant data needs to be further defined and made available publicly to the city.
Well, and I guess I would add on to that, the determination of the market value would be based on comparables from the past 6 months rather than previous 18 months. Just so you're looking at present values.
Although we don't get that opportunity with our home.
Well,
I don't think this document's really setting the value or setting the
No.
fee, it's
No.
specifically excluding that, so
Yeah.
I don't see an issue.
and it is based off of annually, it says in here, so.
One question I have, Jamie, is, so is this gonna be for residential and commercial then?
Yes, this will be
Yes.
covering both of that.
So along with residential and commercial, would that help the parks with donation, or with a cutback from commercial?
I think that's a subjective question. I don't know the impact necessarily, but we should be collecting a fee based on commercial development as well. And again, it's gonna be based on, if we decide to collect cash fee, let me just see, I'm looking at the state language here, so.
Because presently, we get more money
Is,
from commercial than we do residential, correct?
No, I don't believe so.
the current code is written where it was $2,500 for a base fee, plus, now I've been thinking of this new code,
But then there was a percentage of,
It's 5%, estimated 5% of the net area is in the new.
That was in
That
the
was-
old
that
too,
was in
though.
the old.
Yep, that was. in
Because
both.
I don't think we got anything for commercial before.
Yeah, we did.
Did we?
The new
We just
development
didn't
when
get-
it was rezoned, I think.
we weren't getting money from the storage units, but like for commercial buildings and things like that, there was a percentage that
Okay.
we were getting.
Okay.
I think every development that comes forward, residential or commercial, will be reviewed for what parkland dedication requirements they may be eligible for, and will be assessed on an individual basis.
And we will have an opportunity to discuss that when those are coming up?
I can make sure that that comes to the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission when we have those particular, I think that's part of your role is to advise whether it's land or cash. And if there is a development that I'm told by our attorney that this is not eligible for parkland dedication, then, then there wouldn't be a need to bring it forward. But if there is any that have a land, cash, or combination, if it meets the parkland dedication requirement, we're determining what that should be. City staff will, that will come forward from staff to the Parks Commission for your recommendation.
So I guess my question always has been on this is that I think everybody should contribute to parks dedication. Now, some people say, well, commercial, how does that develop a park? Well, if it's bringing people in,
I agree.
yeah.
But you do have within the new code, there is a piece about non-residential and mixed-use property, which, couldn't that apply to?
Well, I guess to me, that's a little ambiguous. I'm just want to make sure that everybody's paying.
Because that doesn't, yeah.
Not being greedy, but.
And I'm making
greedy.
assumptions, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think the big difference is the basis. So the dedication or fee shall bear a rough proportionality to the need created by the proposed subdivision. So as primarily what we do see are new, residential developments coming forward. And that where, if it's 4 units, they might not pay just the flat fee of $2,500 per their 4 units. There's probably more of a low impact proportionality wise on the park use for that. So that's how it'll be determined moving forward. And then if there is the commercial piece and there is a parkland dedication requirement component to that, then that would come forward as well.
There is a timing piece in this, and this is just a comment, so we have it on our radar. There's some timing pieces on this as to, I know the new city ordinance references the timing of the payment. But I think we just need to be cognizant of, we need to see this before final approval of things, because final approval that's a timing issue that impacts this. So if there's a final approval before it comes to us, it could impact the funding that the parks receive. So I just think we need to note that.
On the individual basis as they're being worked on, that gets to the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission at the appropriate time within that window of when payment is due.
Yeah, because you've got some final approval language in here, you've got adopted comprehensive plan language in here, you've got if the previously subdivided property for which a park dedication has been received, being re-subdivided with the same number of lots, it's exempt from park dedication requirements. If as a result of the subdivision of the property, the number of lots is increased, then the park dedication fee must apply only to the net increase of lots. So that kind of gets, I think, back at the storage unit issue that we had. So it just needs to be carefully thought out and timing-wise brought to us at the appropriate time so that Parks doesn't lose out.
And Terry, what you were reading, is that the state statute?
Yes, yep.
Do we have?
I didn't include that, but I can email it over to you guys. I have it in front of me here as well, so I'll get that to you
I look
guys, or
at
I can
them
print
for
a
a
copy
living,
quick
so-
after. Just so you have the detailed component of it. I know it is referenced a few times in here, so I can print that out if you guys want one before you leave.
I could get that.
Yep.
I probably have less questions.
Or, yeah.
It'll be a little bit of a learning, it's gonna be different for everybody. And we have staff and our city attorneys to lean back onto for guiding us through the process. But I think it's a positive step in the right direction to clarify our code language regarding parkland dedication. And I know internally we have, weekly development meetings and are working on streamlining some of the processes so that it is a little more efficient as it comes forward, and it comes forward to Parks Commission just one time, which I know we talked about in January of what that process is. So we're making some streamlining that a little bit, and I think, this ties into it as well, and I think it's good progress, so.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the plan and ask that whatever the individualized basis is for determining these is brought forward to us for discussion, so that we know what will be used, whether it's fair market value and what those other relevant data points are.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, next is 5D, which is the Arts in the Parks concert series.
All right, so the last item here tonight for our regular agenda is the Arts in the Park concert series. I did include a copy of this in your packet here. Just a quick recap of how we got to where we are today and just the desired action for tonight. We've had a couple meetings where we've looked over, or within the small events group, a proposed schedule for our concerts for Arts in the Park this year. There was overall a pretty resounding yes to like Chris Crozy for July 19th and the Johnny Cash Tribute Band for June 28th. And we know we wanted to keep, those two groups in particular with the Rockin' Hollywoods. Some of the feedback was a couple of the groups that were like, two performers wasn't as preferred, wasn't as engaging to the crowd. And so the Parks Commission provided some feedback to myself regarding that. So maybe just a few new recommendations. With that said, I did follow up with Mr. Woody McBride, who we contract with for developing our concert series, and shared that. And this is the final recommendation that I've received back from him for our concert series. Everything here is confirmed, meaning that the date works for each individual group that is listed there. You will note that the Centennial Community Band does say pending. That is the only one that we're just working through logistics if that works for them for that date. If not, it would be a similar or comparable, and I can bring that back to you guys. But I'm hopeful that they'll be confirmed here shortly. So with that said, we are looking forward to getting this finalized so we can send out contracts to the individual entertainers and start promoting our concert series for this summer. So overall, I think it's a good blend. And again, this is what Woody's recommending for the series. So I'm happy to take any questions, see if you have any other comments or considerations. Otherwise, we are looking for approval of our 2022 concert series for Arts in the Park.
So Jamie, as you mentioned, this isn't the original list that Woody presented to us, and I know we gave him some feedback, and I appreciate him taking that feedback and making some changes, but one of the two-man bands here for July 26th, they reminded me of one we had last summer that did not go over very well. They weren't, I don't know how to say this politely. They weren't, their videos that are available to the public don't demonstrate the quality that I think we should serve to the members of our community. And that was that Sean and Ian Okamoto. And I know I provided that feedback to you, and did you? They're still on the list, and it gets back to that two-man kind of band and some of the issues that we've had there.
Yeah, I did communicate that. Woody did eliminate one of the other two-man bands that he had originally recommended. I think it was Sam and somebody early on. So he took that two-man group off the list. He still strongly encourages that we go with Sean and Ian Akamoto. He said they're world class, and he's a big believer, and that they really are big stars, and they play on the North Shore quite a bit. So he's still recommending them. I think he is still open to changing that, but that is still his, recommendation that we'll be happy with having them perform.
Okay. Well, he's the expert, so I'll defer to him and hope I'm wrong.
Well, could we recommend that, without, that band's gotta have 3 or 4 members?
I don't think it's just a members issue with this one. I don't know if, I mean, part of what I do is when we get that list is I do try to do my homework and look at where else they've been across the state and try to view the videos and are they brought back to places, and they were tough to listen to, I thought. But again, it's only my opinion.
So they
so.
have videos on like YouTube or something?
Mhm. Yep, most of the bands, if you go out and research them, most of them do. They were just a little bit, they weren't as dynamic as some of our other choices, so. But we pay Woody to go out and research this, and if Woody says, then I'll defer to him. And
Well, could we, I mean, I don't know, do research and get back to Jamie in the next couple of days and go, I think Terry's right, or I think Terry's all wet, one of the two.
Yeah, I had gone out too and looked them up, and tried to listen to see what kind of music. I thought these guys were okay, but I
Yeah,
could
see, it's a
refresh my
matter of-
memory. But
if we go out and do research to find another one, we've already done some of that work based off the original list, so then I get into questioning why we pay Woody. So I think if Woody's the expert, we go with Woody, and I'm probably wrong on that one. We'll just monitor it and see how that goes, and maybe at the end of the season, we can do we'll have a good feel when we're there, how they are.
maybe not
So.
even at the end of the season, maybe at each of our meetings, we could do a quick review of who the bands were that previous month while they're fresh, and just make a note.
Yep.
So then we can give Woody more guidance, maybe.
Okay, that was my only comment. He's gonna prove me wrong. They're gonna be good.
I make a motion to accept the Arts in the Park series as is.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so then we're down to staff updates, 7A.
Before I jump into the 7A, I just wanted a quick note publicly on the record of our discussion for the Veterans Memorial Concept Plan Review. That is just being postponed to our May meeting. We want representatives from that committee here to share a concept plan that they have, and they would like to present that. So I just wanted to make note that that will be coming back. There was just a schedule conflict. So that is at our May meeting instead. So I'll run through these updates fairly quickly. The downtown revitalization plan, I just wanted to keep you informed as we move along in this. I sent out a link today from the joint workshop between the city council and the EDA, which took place last night in our community room. There was also, I included the presentation for that. So I just want you guys to have that information available to watch back, listen to the conversation, review the documents, so that when this comes to Parks Commission, you guys have an opportunity to provide some feedback as well. I know many of you have already participated in this process one way or another through the open forum or focus groups, comments that have been happening for several months. So there is, some action plans or talk about increased recreation downtown, a little bit in the park area as well. So just want to let you know that that was last night, and I believe this should be on our May agenda. I'm just got to follow up with staff. So any questions on that at all?
Does the Veterans Memorial Group meet with the development people? Because there are lots of issues with regard to the park memorial, Lakeside Memorial in the development plan. So do they talk?
There is one representative that I believe is on the EDA or just participating in these events, and is also on the Veterans Memorial Committee. So they have had a voice at that table about the Veterans Memorial Committee, the plan for the project that's going to be going at Lakeside Memorial Park. So they have had a voice there. I just think it's important. I know Commissioner Miller serves on this subcommittee as well, and as we start making some more headway on that project and, get to a concept plan and start fundraising, just really making sure that that is, at the forefront or included in that project as well. All right, so the next just quick update. It's been a bit, but we've had resident Bill Moore attended one of our Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission meetings several months ago regarding some plantings that were taken out on the Bayview Park property, so city property, that had been a natural buffer to his residence directly next door for several years. Again, he had put in a request for a tree apparently that was infringing from the city property. And upon that, Public Works noticed there was buckthorn, and the trees looked kind of rough, so took them all down. So it now remains empty. And Public Works does not have an intent to replant. So resident has spoke to the Parks Commission. He'd like to consider the city replant something because it has been there for so long. And I let him know that we're still having these conversations and figuring out, what that recommendation would be. Public Works still stands firm on not recommending anything go back at Bayview Park. It was suggested that maybe a middle ground could be considering some blue spruce trees that were a potential donation from the Lions Club. So we have to look into that and see if that's even a viable option or not. So I did let the resident know this is still on our radar and we're working on it. He did call again actually today and said that he is starting to see people like go from the basketball court right to his driveway to the sidewalk. So it's, it's a problem as the spring is kind of here. So I said we're still working on it and told him we'd be just, getting an update tonight. And I'd like to get some pricing of some kind or some recommendation back to see and bring that to our May meeting so Parks Commission can have some information to reflect on if they want to recommend putting in some trees or not.
So Jamie, I went over there today and met with Mr. Moore because I saw it on the agenda. So I thought I'm going to go over now that we don't have snow on the ground, go over and take another look. Just a few things follow up. I would estimate it's got to be something that probably fills between a 60 and 80 foot space. You can clearly see how people would be making a beeline right across his yard into the basketball hoops. So I stand where I originally stood on this one in that I see this as a replacement of what was taken down there. And again, there was no conversations as to, we were never asked to provide any input. So I would like to see probably the last time I ask as well before getting even more upset. I mean, it's drug on too long.
Yeah.
So I want to see a recommendation of what could be replaced there. Otherwise, I'll just make a motion to replace something there. So for the next meeting, I would like to see that. I also will tell you that the Lions paying for city maintenance, in my mind, is not an appropriate option here. In visiting with the Lions, yes, they do have an Arbor Day thing where they give away trees, but they're little 12-inch trees. And a 12-inch tree is not going to work in that footprint, and it's going to be killed immediately anyhow. So I would like a recommendation on a reasonable set of shrubs or a tree that would provide some barrier. Mr. Moore did suggest, how about lilac bushes? I don't know how the city feels about that, but that's something you could take back to see if that would be an option, but it needs to be something of a decent size to create a barrier there. So I don't think we should be relying on the Lions, 12-inch little stubs, and I want a recommendation on something that could be replaced. We had something there for years, it was removed, and I think it's a reasonable request to look at a replacement.
Any other comments?
I agree.
All right, my last update is just on Castlewood Golf Course. The course opened this year, kind of a soft opening, Monday, April 4th, with walking only. They did get a new fleet of golf carts this year, which look nice. I know the ones they'd had for several years were kind of they've served their purpose. So we have some new carts on the course this year, and just wanted to comment that we are now open taking tee times with carts, and there are some new leagues this year. There's a golf league, adult co-ed, so that's going to be I think that was actually starting this week, weather depending potentially. And then we're also doing the junior leagues again this year. So just an update on that. I know the clubhouse, you probably saw over the winter, the construction of the exterior of the building, that portion is complete. I don't have a lot of additional detail on the interior, but it is likely, we need to build out the inside portion yet, so it's not functioning as a clubhouse quite yet this year. I'll try to get you guys an update by our May meeting of what that process is gonna look like. I do know it'd be nice to try to have that complete so we could use it this winter for potentially, whether it's simulators or any other, use the space for any winter programming. So just got to get some communication out about that as well. But we're up and running again this year. The golf course should be finishing up their audit and year-end financials from 2021 season, which I think was a record-breaking year. So looking forward to seeing where that ended up, and I think we're going to be happy with how things went last year. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but just a quick update.
Any updates on the old clubhouse, Jamie? Are we gonna be able to put that up for sale, or?
That's a good question. I don't know yet what the plan is with that pro shop, if it can be relocated to a different area or what, but I think that'll be coming up here in conversation soon as we finish up the clubhouse.
Anything else?
And that's all I have for updates tonight.
All right, so do we have any updates, Betty?
How did you know?
I don't know, I just knew you were gonna have an update, because you've been doing the work that your co-chair should be doing with you, and I apologize.
I'll just do a quick spring fling update. We're still in a lot of the planning stages, but it's May 7th in the fire station or around the fire station, from 10 to 1, so same as we've done the last few years. If anybody's available to help with setup at like 8 o'clock, we could appreciate a little bit more help. It was kind of a lot for us to get ready. So we have the petting zoo. We're gonna do, we'll have the craft table. We have the games, so just a lot. We have three sponsors. The Forest Lake Lions, Keller Williams, and Bolton and Mank. So they'll be donating some time and some money, so that's awesome. So fingers crossed on the weather this year. So any questions there?
Are you going to have a balloon lady?
Yes, a balloon lady and a face painter.
The balloon line was
Yes.
extremely long.
So that's why we thought this year if we added the face painter, it would help kind of offset. We had a long discussion about how long that line, and some kids never got in,
Yeah.
which is disappointing. So,
Could there be 2 balloon ladies?
We've been looking into a second balloon lady, but those aren't as easy to come by.
What?
Or they're really, or they're out of our budget. There are some that do that as a profession, but it can be kind of expensive. So if you know anybody.
Does Lose Balloons or whatever kind of just be north of the gun shop?
in that little white building,
Yeah,
the white
yeah.
strip mall there.
I don't know if she's,
I don't know that she does the character balloons that I'm aware of.
oh,
I think just like big bouquets and arcways and individual bouquets, but I don't know that twisting animal figures is, I can ask.
Good.
Yeah.
And then just a quick update on the Your Boat Club. I've gotten information from 2 of the kind of more local cities, so I'll try and have something put together by the May meeting, so that we can just start. I think our contract's not up till fall, but, and though in Champlin, it's just structured much differently than ours, so it'll be interesting to see what we can kind of get out of that and what makes sense for us, but.
I was gonna ask you, I was over in Lindstrom the other day, and there's a boat club over there. There was a big sign.
Really? They weren't on I have a list of all of them that were on their website, but let me check, cause maybe it's been updated. Cause that one would be, comparable then.
Right.
I'll check. And then last, I just have a question. So, when do we expect to hear on the Belts grant?
I can get I can get you an update before our next meeting. I have to reconnect with the Belts grant. I believe it was June was the deadline, or
Hear back?
yeah,
Okay.
midsummer, but I'll verify that, and then I have to circle back with Bolton and Mink on the implementation plan and the next steps, because we do need to keep that moving forward, so as we are able to hopefully get that grant, that will be a portion of the revenue identified along with, other funding sources. We've got a donation from the Rotary Club and can start seeking out some other grants as well, and I do have some seasonal help. I think they'll be able to come in full-time. As you know, our recreation and communications position we had last year, we carried that forward to this year. We did get a little additional budget for part-time staff. So I do have somebody scheduled to start mid-May. Again, it's within the budget, but it's just to help with things in the office and the events in the community, grant research and writing, so hopefully find some additional grants for that project. So that'll be helpful, but we really want to keep that moving and find as much funding as we can.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Anybody else?
With regard to Bell's Park, 2 meetings ago, we talked about you had different options.
Yes.
Did you select one, or was that not a part of the grant application?
Yes, without looking at it, I can't remember which one. I think based on collective feedback for purposes of the grant, which we're not completely, set with, I believe it was,
2
put me
and
on the
3
spot.
were the
I believe it was 2 for purposes of the grant because they clearly identified the accessible components and features for purposes of grant applications. So we'll revisit that and can certainly make some adjustments. And again, our goal is to provide more of an inclusive playground. So so I think that was the number 2.
Okay.
I'll check to make sure, but.
The only thing I would note is that the Forest Lake Association meeting is Wednesday, the 20th at 7 PM. So if you're interested in that, there's a sign up for that.
And if there's any other questions or potential agenda items you'd like to see for May, you can just send that over in an email, and I'll be working on getting that going because I feel like for some reason that one I think is going to come up pretty quick. So.
And we've talked about a lot of things that we're gonna talk about in May, so it could get long.
All right, anything else? Hearing nothing else?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
So we have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.